Welcome to the What's Lacking podcast. It's your host, Larry Atencia. With me today is Mike Clugston. Uh, do you want to tell the audience how we know each other, Mike?
Well, how you doing today, Larry? Larry and I know us because I am his brother-in-law. I am married to his sister. His sister and I have been together for 17 years. We have three kids together: 16-year-old son, a 13-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old daughter. Um, so life is full right now for us.
Yeah, time flies. It feels sometimes like it was yesterday where when we first met. And yeah, you've created and maintained a beautiful family. You've been a great husband and partner to my sister. So I'm very glad to have you and to call you my brother-in-law.
Thanks.
Do you want to tell the do you want to tell us what you do for a living?
So what I do for a living? So currently, I'm an operations manager at Amazon. I've been in management, retail management, basically my whole life. I spent 7 years at Amazon. I was a general manager of Zoop for about 2 years, intermediate until I got the job at Amazon. Um, Currently, I help run a Amazon facility. Technically, what I do is I'm at what we call the last mile. So we get the packages that are already packaged up and ready to go to the customers, and we sort them so that they are ready for the vans to be able to take out based on grids and where the homes are located, so that it's as efficient as possible. Um, and then we try to make sure that we get 100% of the packages delivered that come through the station. That can be challenging at times, but if you think about it, we're pushing on average, let's say 40,000 packages or more. So we try to make sure that we get 40,000 100% accurate from the time it comes in the back door till it gets on the van to the customer's uh, address. It's easier said than done, but I think we do as a company, we do a really good job, and we're continuously trying to improve.
Yeah, I mean the experience I've had with being a Prime member with Amazon has been mostly positive. I mean, I think that's the basis of their um, monopoly and just chokehold on um, retail. So I think logistically, it must be an incredible sort of piece of work for Amazon to be able to do what they do in the US. Um, so I know you try to reach 100% of packages delivered. What is the actual number if you care to share? I'm sure it's in the high 90s because I've never had an issue with
So
deliveries or packages.
our goal is we usually average around 99.90 to
Sheesh.
99.80. Um, that's the minimum goal and expectation is 99.90.
Okay.
Which is basically, if you think about it, would be like about one package per 1,000, give or
Right.
take. With the goal to shoot, one per 10,000 if possible.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't remember the last time I didn't receive a package from Amazon. Um, yeah. So, yeah, incredible logistical feat. I do have a joke, a sort of dystopian joke about Amazon. I just, I have this recurring daydream of like the American flag instead of having 50 stars, just having 50 Amazon logos, and then like, the United States being called the United States of Amazon, because it does seem like there's this sort of um, complete colonization of the economy and of the country by Amazon and its services. And I'm sure Jeff Bezos is not like resting on his laurels and saying, "Oh, this is where we stop." I think the corporation and the company will try to continue expanding and finding new markets and colonizing those. So, but yeah, I guess that's
I
good for
think that's a
you.
little outside my realm. I think the company is a great company. I mean, yes, we're like, we always strive for continuous improvement. I wouldn't quite say we have a monopoly by any means. Walmart would be a big competitor there, and they have a ton of brick and mortar stores that are already established. Same with Target.
Right.
Theirs would just be name a few. So there's a lot of competition out there. Um, Plus, Amazon does have other businesses like our web services, which is something that I do believe the company really strives to work
A
to improve that area as well.
AW AWS, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and they also provide the web services for um, State Department, CIA, um,
I'm
FBI.
not sure, so I honestly wouldn't be able to comment
I
on
think
that.
I think so, but that's either here nor there. We're not here to to
Yeah, put
to
me in some jeopardy. I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
exactly, like whatever. So that sounds like a hard
It's
job.
interesting work.
But
Yeah, it's
but
not
I
easy.
was about to say that, but very interesting, and it's probably something that um you enjoy. Is that fair to say?
I do enjoy it.
Okay.
I absolutely do enjoy it. I will say that. I think one thing I like most about working at Amazon is trying to help other people build their careers and get them promoted.
Yes. Okay. So Mike, can you tell us what was your childhood like? Um.
So I grew up outside of Northeast Philadelphia. I grew up in a twin house when I first started growing up, probably the first 12 years of my life. Um, the first years of my life. So honestly, there's a bully that lived down the street from me. This guy named Brian Fountain, and he used to pick on me a lot, beat me up a lot. I was friends with him, but at the same time, he was absolutely someone that pushed me around. And when we got older, I was friends with him. It wasn't quite like a bully situation when we got older. He was like 2 years older than me. But growing up, I mean, I had a good childhood. I had two loving parents. My parents did a good job raising us. They were fair with everything. Um, I grew up walking to school. We had to walk like 7, 8 blocks to school. Maybe it was seven to 10. Nothing major. I know kids these days like they have to walk 2 blocks to a bus stop and they're complaining, and I think it's ridiculous. But you know,
What's what's yeah? What's
one
the
thing I would
joke?
say,
How
well, instant gratification is what a lot of I would say the millennials want, and what I mean by that is just anybody that's under 35 thinks if they do something for like a year or two that they all of a sudden deserve credit like they've been doing it for 10 years. And as I try to tell my kids, it's day by day and week by week, it kind of goes by pretty fast, and year by year, it just goes by slow. And then all of a sudden, 5 years goes by. So,
yeah,
don't take it for granted to a certain degree, because time flies quicker than you think.
that's true.
Even though there's
That's
days where
true.
people are like, oh, this is miserable. Like people go through bad times. Um, you know, you pick up and keep going. But anyways, back to my childhood. Um, we moved when I was in fifth grade, I guess it was, from 7th Street to 10th Street in North Wales. That was really nice. When we got a little bit bigger of a house, still had to share a bathroom with my sisters. So I shared a bathroom with my two sisters my whole life. I hated it, but at the same time, I mean, it bonded us as a family.
I
I
sh-
will say that.
I shared a room with your wife basically until we were, yeah, I mean, I don't remember us ever having our own rooms. We even there was a time too where we even shared it with two of our cousins plus Jordy. So it was five of us in a room.
That's a lot in a room.
Yeah, but
Did you all fall asleep at the same time?
I mean, you could, yeah, you adapt.
You have
Everyone
to.
had
Yeah, I
everyone fell
know you
asleep,
have
but
to.
yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm not complaining. It wasn't bad, but
Oh no,
yeah,
I know.
um, it was definitely interesting. Just, I mean, there was always people in the house. There was always kids in the room. There was always, even growing up, it wasn't just my sister. I and my cousins, it was always also like cousins and people sleeping over on the weekend. So I kind of do miss those days where there was a lot of family get-togethers and just spending time with family members and cousins and people just being in the house all the time, constantly bonding in that way. I feel like as we've gotten older, obviously, there's been a separation and just
Yeah,
alienation
especially with
from
the
each other.
pandemic.
Oh, yeah, that
Especially with,
exacerbated things, right? But I think that was, I mean, it's kind of the the law of growing up and finding yourself and creating your own path and your own and having your own family. But nonetheless, I do remember it being perhaps a little bit more tight knit and communal.
all right,
Um,
so I'm gonna rein it back in. So I'll give you a little bit more juice for childhood. When I was in fifth grade, like I think it was like almost the summer, the end of fifth grade, going into sixth grade, I did punch one kid that was bullying me at the end of fifth grade. I punched him really hard. At the end of the day of school, on school property, ran home. We were leaving to go to the beach. So my mom and my sisters and I, like, we all got in the car and left. Like, they were basically waiting for me to get home. Uh, by the time we got down to the shore, my dad called my mom, and basically the kid brought his dad to my house to tell him what I did, to try to confront me. And well, I wasn't there. The kid at that point, just so you know, the kid was apologetic to me and everything. I'm friends with him as we got older. But I'll tell you what, he was certainly surprised because I was very much smaller than him, and he kind of just thought because I was a small kid, he could push me around. And I was just intelligent about the timing of it because it was the last day of school, and I was like, I'm not going to be at this school. They can't hold me even if they try to catch me because they're going to know who did it. He's going to tell people. He's going to report it. Um, and then in the summer also, I had another fight from fifth grade, like going into sixth grade. Like a kid called me out, or I called him out. I don't even remember how that worked. And I ended up losing that fight. I didn't actually get beat up. He actually held my nose in my mouth and almost kind of like suffocated me a bit. So I gave up. Uh, and of course, there were probably like 25, 30 kids there. It definitely was a social hit to me going into sixth grade. We were transferring to another school, like going from fifth grade to sixth grade. A lot of the kids were in sixth grade with me. So, that definitely affected me through sixth grade. And then seventh grade, I wasn't popular by any means, but I started making friends again with some of the popular kids. And I think it was eighth grade. I did get in another fight in school. It was stupid. It was a kid that wasn't even like a real tough kid, but he was bigger than me. And it really all started about him making fun of my mom and making mom jokes in the bathroom. And me and
right.
my temper, I just started getting ticked off. I told him to stop, and really, push came to shove. I sent a note through homeroom, across the homeroom, passed it through like six kids to him, saying we're going to fight right after class. So everybody knew about it. So we went into the hallway, and he didn't really want to fight. I did. I got a little bit of stigma back. It wasn't even my intention after that fight. And then I never got in a fight
Regain
in
some of
school after
regain
that.
some of the lost status.
Yeah, that would be a better way to put it. Lost status. And then after that, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was never like a tough kid in school. I wasn't like a bully by any means. I was probably bullied a little bit. But one thing I was is someone who didn't shut their mouth, and I definitely didn't let people bully me. I mean, that was one thing about me. I was more spunk. I didn't try to start fights by any means, but if someone started with me, I was definitely spitting back. I was pushing back. Um, and again, I was not a big person. It didn't always work out to my benefit.
So same here. Same here. What was I mean, this is a perfect segue because um the next question was going to be about your experience in the educational system. I feel like I have a sense of um the social dimension of you in school. Um can you elaborate a little bit more on perhaps just class performance, academics, or even just, in general for high school?
Yeah, so grade school was good for me. I mean, mostly grade school through high school, it wasn't challenging for me. So what I mean by that is I paid attention in school. I didn't really goof off and get in trouble for the most part, and I got my homework done in school. So most of the time, I didn't have to bring it home. I didn't really have to study too hard for tests because, like I said, I mean, I did pay attention when I was in class. So I was probably a BC student in grade school. Um, Going into like sixth, seventh grade was in. So the way it worked for me is I was first through fifth grade in elementary school. Sixth and seventh grade were in a school. Eighth grade and ninth grade were in another school. But when we were in ninth grade, the district was going through a transition. So we were the only ninth graders in that whole school. There was nobody else. And then when we transitioned to the high school became ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th, but we were 10th graders at that point.
Okay.
But anyways, when we were like going into sixth and seventh, eighth and ninth grade, I was pretty much an A B student with some C's in there. It was more pretty solid B student with a few A's, and then I really didn't get too many C's except when I struggled. Like eighth grade, I had a horrible time in English class. I believe they call it ELA now. I hated English. I thought it was stupid, verbs, adjectives, all that sort of thing. I get the point of it all, so don't get me wrong. Um, However, it was definitely a subject that I didn't care. I would have rather been in chemistry or something like that, geometry than freaking. But everybody has their
I
preferences.
mean, I think it's interesting that you would, feel that English and just how important it is to just communicating and understanding how that would even be thought of as stupid. Perhaps like the mechanics of it and the sort of rules. Yeah, I could kind of see that. Because it's like you're
It just
like, I
came
know
down
how to
to is like I'm
express
not going to
myself, I know
be.
how to talk, I just don't know how to break down the sort of the rules
That,
of
that was
my
my thing is I'm not
expressions.
writing books. I'm not going to be
Right.
a poet. I'm not publishing anything. So I was like, I don't care. And then computers were starting to come out, and spell check was pretty early on with that. And I was like, boom, I got spell check. I don't need anything else.
That's true. I mean, yeah, that is true. Um, so I think you got to
Like
was the English part high school or was it more middle school
English was just eighth grade. I struggled
in
for some
general?
reason, and after that, I was able to get A's and B's. High school, I got A's and B's. I will say, like my junior year, I was a goof, probably more in a sense. I got in school suspension, like probably like 22 days of it that year, but doing stupid stuff. Like it wasn't things that were fighting or starting. It was just talking back to teachers and
All
kind
right.
of being an ass, honestly. Obviously, getting ISS didn't fare well for me. But I made the best of it. I would goof off when I
What's
was in ISS. I was like, shit.
what's
Basically,
what's
ISS. So like for me, ISS was in school suspension. So like starting
oh
in sixth grade, we had 8 periods. So you would change class 8 times through the day: sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. So
yeah
we had all different classes, which did make it nice. So like when I was in sixth and seventh grade, like we had to take home economics. So I had to take like sewing and cooking. Like you didn't have a choice. But I'm not gonna lie, like I still remember that I took those classes to this day, and like most males don't mind learning some of that, especially if they're in a position
yeah
where they're forced to. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because no one was able to make fun of you. Whereas when it's an elective and you have to select it as one of your extra classes, then everyone's like, "Oh, well, you picked it." Um,
Hey, listen, cooking as an elective, I think everyone should pick
it's
because
essential.
that's an essential life skill and like I'm not a great cook, but I'm not even good or competent or even mediocre, but I had to learn so that I could one save money and two start eating a little bit healthier. So I want to say that I put in the effort to try to learn how to cook around 2014, 2015. And yeah, by that time I was already uh,
An adult.
yeah, 30 years old, maybe a little
Okay,
bit
so
earlier than that, but so I kind of regret not learning earlier because I definitely feel like it had a detrimental effect on my health, number one, but also just how much money I spent.
Yeah, you probably spent a lot more eating out just because it was simpler. It was better food than when you made it yourself. So it was like, why not?
Yeah. Um. So you know, pivoting a little bit, what are your views on politics and the political system as it currently exists in the
As it
U.S.?
exists, I think it's a shithole, honestly. Um, Number one, there shouldn't just be two parties that you have to pick from. I think there should be a bit more diversity in it. Um, I'm a registered Democrat. I have a lot of Republican views. Hands down, one of the biggest things I absolutely despise about Republicans is their view on abortion. I'm a full firm believer in a woman's right to choose, and that's just where it ends. It's a woman's body. Um, I'll debate anybody on that subject. um, that being said, look, I'm not for more government. I don't think we need to pay out a ton of. I get Medicare and Social Security for our elderly, but like I'm not a real big fan of too much welfare. I will say I think there should be limitations on that. Half of the people who do and get welfare don't even use it for what it's for, which is the children. Um, and what I mean by that is anybody you see with an iPhone and they say they're getting welfare, I would say, well, you shouldn't have an iPhone then, because somehow that money from welfare, I guarantee, is going towards that iPhone. It's just a fact.
So
iPhones are, a cheap one's $500.
they should be walking around with flip phones or
Well,
no
what I'm
phone
saying though is
or beeper.
you're talking tons of money. So like someone that is on welfare for let's say 6, 7 kids, why do they get money for 7 kids? Like there just should be a limit. I'm not saying I'm the one that should determine what that limit is, but as a society, we should say, when is enough enough? It's kind of like how many shirts do you need? How many pairs of underwear do you need till you say, I don't need to buy any more? You know what I mean? It's got to be a point where you don't need any more kids if you can't take care of the ones that you currently have. And I think
um
as a society, we sometimes forget that.
yeah.
Sorry if
um
I went on a tangent there, but the
no,
political system,
you yeah, you were
I
definitely
think it's very decisive. I don't like how it's so polarized in the sense of the far left and the far right. I think the far left and the far right are both wrong. Um, I am more of an independent, in my opinion. I'm a firm believer in everybody's personal right to choose. Really to each their own, long as it's not directly impacting someone else in a negative way. And even when it is, if it's not like directly affecting you, then just because your opinion is different doesn't mean that someone else should change what they're doing.
right. So you're big
They
on
only should change it if it's harming someone else in some way, shape, or form.
right. Okay.
Now, then you get into debates on that. Don't get me wrong, but that's when you have to kind of get back to reality because some people take that too far. I should think
So
of an example there.
tolerance, allowing people to make free decisions and free choices with free with
Well, the
speech,
problem with
with
our
action,
politics now is
etc.
it's controlled by big business and big donors. You figure there's what 300 million people in America plus. Um, it only takes less than 1% of them, 500,000 of them, to really run the country because they have all the money. And that's where you are with politics. I mean, I would not say that there's very many people in Washington that aren't there for the power, the money that it comes with it. They're not there just for the people.
Yeah.
We're as a country to pass that point, unfortunately. Now, I'm not saying the country's doomed in any way. It's just I think as Americans, we need to do a better job of electing our officials and really come to a consensus. Like you don't always have to like the Republican or the Democrat, but you can't try to choose someone that is so far off the loose end that it's just no good for anyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to your previous point about our options being limited to two parties and the candidates that they um, choose and select. So I mean, there's
Andrew
no
Wang has another affiliate party. I forget what it's called. He's trying to start. I would actually kind of get on board with that. It's more of an independent
yeah.
party, but trying to start a party is extremely difficult in this
I
country.
mean, yeah, most third parties have uh failed in recent history.
Yep.
Um, I think I think the last candidate from a third party who got more than, I don't want to say a number just because yeah who got a considerable amount, and it was still very small, less than 5%, if and people could Google and research, but was Ralph Nader, right? Um,
Yeah, could be.
and then
That's pretty long ago. I wouldn't. You're better at politics than me at that point.
yeah, I think Ralph Nader was probably the last third party candidate who captured some sort of to capture the imagination of the American public and actually had a less than negligible effect on um, the national election. Um,
I remember Ross Perot as a
Ross
candidate,
was
but
was
probably think back in the '90s. I believe it was. Talking a long time ago.
yeah. I'm not sure that Ross Perot was,
I think he was independent, wasn't he? I don't really know.
or
I'm not
maybe
gonna say
yeah.
that I.
We should have come more prepared with our um,
Facts.
election history and
Well,
facts. But nonetheless, the point being that it seems that the Republican and Democratic Party machine is so entrenched that the viability of independent third parties even making a dent in any way that is
a
um,
perfect example.
fresh is kind of is kind of hard and impossible. I think what Trump and Andrew Yang have shown is that um, one can within the party perhaps move them to in a, in a,
Move
in
the
a, in a,
needle.
in a direction that is different than what had been become established, but you're still working within the party. I think that Andrew Yang, he ran as a Democrat, correct?
I think he did it first. I think he might be independent
And
now.
then
I'm
yeah,
pretty sure.
exactly, because yeah, he's more of a technocrat, and he's a
He's a
technocrat
self-made person, I
capitalist,
believe, as well.
less not so much about social conservatism and family and traditional values. So in that sense, he isn't aligned with the big faction of the Republican Party, but in the more technocratic, capitalist idea, I think he might be a little aligned with
Problem.
Republicans,
Well, the
although
problem was. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, because I think
I
he
said
he, he initially was a Republican, um, and then I think the technocracy part and his support of universal basic income, which can be either Republican or Democratic um, policy. It seemed to gain more traction for Democrats, and so I think that's why he chose to run initially for the Democratic Party. But I think he's the type to either be independent or just switch between parties or or portray himself as being a centrist.
I'm gonna reel it back in here.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like
Yes, please.
one of the biggest problems with with like politics and that is your donors. So like a perfect example is the NRA and guns. Everyone in this country knows that guns is a problem and we need some real gun reform. Yet the Republican side and the NRA preys on this, your right to bear arms. I don't disagree that Americans should have a right to own a gun, but it should be extremely hard to get a gun. You shouldn't be able to easily get a gun, and you should have to validate multiple times over, at least once a year, if not twice a year, that you're legally allowed to have the gun. And anybody that has a problem with having to, recertify themselves in a sense that they're allowed to have the gun, then you're hiding something. Because most people that carry guns freely would have no problem saying, "Yeah, I'll recertify myself every 6 months. I don't care. I think it's bullshit, but I'll do it,"
Right.
just so they can carry it around. That gives the person a right to carry it around. But it is too simple for someone to go get a gun right now. It's insane. I mean,
Well, I
I'm
mean,
not going to
I would,
divulge too hard into my personal life, but it's just too simple.
yeah, I mean,
Like,
I
it,
think,
anybody can go get a gun anywhere. Like, it's just too easy, especially in cities. It's kind of pathetic.
yeah, I mean, I think some states and municipalities make it harder, um, but the illegal market for guns is also robust,
You
and
need
if you
federal
can't,
change to get something done.
and if you can't get it legally, or which as you say is fairly simple, even if you can, you could always get it some way
You
somehow.
just go down to Texas if you're really that desperate. You could buy a gun legally there without barely getting a background check still. So it just depends where you
Yeah,
go.
taxes or even gun shows, and yeah, I mean,
Well,
if you
and then in
want
the
it,
city, there's
if
just so many guns. Period. Like that, they're
exactly,
they're all in the streets.
if you want one, you'll get one. Um,
And
but
segue into religion because that's where the Republicans are at.
um, I, I don't know. So, religious views, Mike. It sounds like, yeah, this will be a
So I mean, I was raised Methodist. Um, I went to church. Once I guess I hit 16, 15, 16, my mom didn't force us to go to church anymore. We used to go to Sunday school and that in the mornings when we were younger, so we learned a lot about it. But I would say when it comes to religion, I know my wife is, I believe it's Catholic. Yes, it is Catholic. She's not Christian. I know that. And I know like your mom is pretty religious, which is a good thing. Me personally, I'm not extremely religious. I don't believe that someone higher being controls what I do or controls my outcomes. Um, I'm in fact proof of living that you can change outcomes. And what I mean by that is you like when they said like a lot of people don't really get the words like you can do whatever you want. What that means is it's just perseverance. Um, you know, I'm proud that I work at Amazon as a high level operations manager and still striving to get even higher. Um, that doesn't come just because it was given to me, that's for sure.
right.
I've worked for 15 years to get to where I'm at.
Yeah, you got to put in the hard work. You can't just rely on
But
good
when
luck.
it comes to religion, we're teaching our kids religion, but only to the point where they're aware of religion. I don't make them go to Sunday school every weekend. We do make them go and get confirmed, um, so that and their confirmation and things like that. The reason that we do that is my personal opinion is I want my kids to be educated about religion, but they can make their own choice. Um, Evangelical Christians, I think, are brainwashed to some degree. I think it's ridiculous how in the South they have these massive churches that have like 10,000 people and they're like all together. And it's like, number one, a church should be a little bit more central, in my opinion, because it should be more intimate. I get if it's 100, 200, 300 people, that's one thing, but that's really kind of a small group, to be quite honest. When you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in a church and they're all donating and that pastor is extremely wealthy, um, I think that goes beyond what religion is.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of the evangelical religion Christians and pastors are these days. So my opinion about religion is it's a crock of shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's your
It's
opinion.
something they created to help people believe in something,
Yeah,
because
I'm
people can
not.
be
I'm
weak-minded.
yeah, I'm not religious myself. Um,
Some people might get
but
offended by my words. I
oh yeah, yeah.
apologize.
No, I mean, you're free to have your beliefs and your opinions, and I think any sort of belief system that you have where you're not constantly um, questioning it and trying to have a deep understanding of its history and um, its function in society and how it operates and um, what it's done, then I don't think you're doing it the right way. So I agree with you that like anything else, one needs to be able to think through, think critically, understand, find purpose, find meaning, um, and understand that everything is a growing and developing and tradition that it shouldn't be stagnated and shouldn't be dogmatic. So
Life is a constant change and a constant work of, really, if you're a good person, it's a constant work of self-improvement. What I mean by that is any rational person is continuously trying to make themselves better, whether it be financially, whether it be mentally, some people physically. Um, it's human nature to want to better yourself. It's how you apply it is the challenge that most people have, in my opinion.
yeah,
Um, Perseverance and work ethic, I don't believe, is something you can teach somebody. It's something they're raised with.
yeah,
And what I mean by that is if you're raised with parents or a parent that works and is always working, they might go to job, but they'll always have a job. You raised with better work ethic than if you have a parent, or let's say you have two parents and one parent doesn't ever work, or you have a single parent that's intermittently working. Sometimes they work, then they might go for 8 9 months a year that they don't work, and work just doesn't seem like it's a priority for that parent. That child's going to grow up with that kind of a work ethic too. And that's just a personal belief of mine. But I've seen it firsthand. Now, don't get me wrong, there are people that have parents that might not be the best role models that turn out to be wonderful gems. But they find their own perseverance and they find that own drive. And they weren't taught it. Again, and that's where you find the people who are successful is when you fall down, you get back up, you keep going. You fall down, it hurts, and I'm talking figuratively. You get up, you keep going. We all make mistakes. That's one
yeah,
thing. Like kids are always like, "Oh, how are you know you're ready to be an adult, or how do you know you're ready to have a kid?" You're not when it happens most of the time. Like you learn as you go. That's what life is.
yeah. Um, I agree. I think for religion, um, it's a time tested mechanism
I
that
segued you perfectly into number
that
7.
yeah that what was I saying? It's a time tested
Religion.
mechanism that people can use as a shorthand for self development and grappling with the deeper questions of life. And so I think that you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And as we get older and develop and try to intellectually reach enlightenment, we begin to
People
incorporate
need religion.
incorporate a lot of the teachings and the kernel of truths of religion into our own supersession of those more pernicious elements of religions. So I say that to say that there's a reductive way in which we could be very critical of religions as institutions and the corruption that we know exists in all of them. But I think that as I've stated in other podcast episodes, that it's important to try to get to the truth of those ancient, wisdom traditions, and if we think of religion that way. But knowing that you want to segue, um
Well, no, I was just saying, but I mean, back to religion. There's a little thing with religion. I get it's good for some people. My personal opinion of it is though is I don't live by it. Maybe I do in some aspects because to be a good person, like religion does teach you to be a good person. Like the one golden rule I always remember and try to live by is do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. So like there is a place for religion. I just don't think it should be as mixed with the world. It shouldn't be as mixed with politics as it is these days. Like that's probably a clear statement. There used to be a very clear delineation between the separation of church and state, and the way politics have gone, especially the Republican side. They've really
yeah,
tried to incorporate religion with the Christian belief mostly within politics. If you look at our Supreme Court justice system at the current moment, it's the exact reason of religion being tied into our society by certain people just based on their beliefs.
yeah.
And let's be honest, those conservative judges do not speak for the majority of the population. That's their mistake. And they're too arrogant to realize that or acknowledge it, one of the two.
Yeah. That's well said. Yes, I do think that the argument that you just presented is a powerful one, and yeah, I think it's something that could muddy the waters and get us in trouble if we don't learn how to separate or choose the right things to build a cohesive, unified, um, collective and community. So yeah, I mean, I agree.
Trump
Um,
really muddied the water. It was muddy and now it's really muddy.
well,
Anyway,
wasn't he trying to clean the swamp? Isn't that
yeah, drain the
one
swamp,
of
as he
the
would say.
okay,
Yeah, he
drain the
was as
swamp?
much
Go.
part of the swamp problem as the rest of them are. Um,
Yeah, people have short memories, and
yes, that is one problem with
sometimes
Americans.
symbols become more important than reality, and I think people knew the reality of who he was. I mean, he's been in the
I think the reason he
public eye
first
since
won
the
is
80s, but he became something beyond just himself and an emblem, an avatar for a particular type of um, defense of American traditional values and as a sort of backlash against uh, woke
Trump was a
leftist.
piece of crap. He still is a
Always
piece
has
of
been, yes.
crap, and I'm just being polite. He's a pathological liar, and it blows my mind that any rational American would think that guy has anything good to say, period. If you listen to Trump or anybody who thinks that Trump has any value in the words that come out of his mouth, you're as much of a bonehead as he is.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I
And don't
think
worry, the law will catch
politics
up.
is more um, entertainment and more of playing a game to see whose team is going to be on top. And so we don't think in terms of what is going to rationally benefit us. And we don't think in terms of like rational ways of working with others to achieve certain material goals. It's more of a sports fanatic type of scheme. And so Democrats are a team, Republicans are a team, and based on how the vast majority of other people around the communities that I live, um, how they move and what they do, that's what we'll tend to do. And so it's not rational. It's just a matter of choosing the team that is popular in my particular region or my particular um, place. Um, are you doing anything towards self improvement, mentally, spiritually,
Constantly. Uh,
financially?
honestly, like, so something that I've always had a problem with would be patience. I would say in the last year or two, I've gotten really, really good at being very much more patient. My job does have a lot to do with that. One thing is like, especially at my job, you can never show frustration, or when you do, when you are frustrated, you can't exude it. Um, and you always relate it back to, if you come home from work and you're mad and you're arguing with your wife for no reason or whatever, you put your wife in a bad mood, you put your kids in a bad mood. It's just because you came in home in a bad mood. And it's the same thing at work. If you're mad in a bad mood at work for whatever the reason, whether controllable or not, the people around you feed off of that. So that being said, I'm constantly always making sure I'm extremely positive about things. I try to always look at every problem as, how can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? When I make my own mistakes, and I still make mistakes, it's not a, instead of looking at it as like, well, this shouldn't happen to me for this reason. Why are you looking at me for this, or why? It's more of, all right, what can I learn from this? All right, how can I better myself from this? And what I mean, so in a way, it's just a different perception at looking at things. One perfect example is, coming home on Christmas Eve, we got our car hit, side swiped, and got the side mirror taken off. I was immediately frustrated. And the reason is because I'm still dealing with it today. It's
Yeah.
February. The car's still not fixed because the first car dealership I took it to didn't want to fix it for the price that insurance would pay. Um, and that's a perfect example of just, you can't get mad about something, even though it's to some degree controllable, but it's not controllable. I just have to go with the flow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I call the insurance. I keep working through it. It's in a new place. Um, Self growth is good. I still have a lot of work to do because I did call the insurance guys yelling at them at first. But in the end, they were good with me and they worked with me. Um, we'll see if I'm still happy with them at the end of all that process.
Do you have any sort of practices or actual things that you do to try to uh increase your ability to be patient, or is this just something that you are making a conscious effort
That's it. You have to
and
be
you're not
conscious.
necessarily.
You have to be conscious of your facial expressions, the way you're acting when people say stuff, and it can be very difficult in stressful situations when someone brings something to you, and like it was something controllable, and you have to deal with it. And instead of getting mad and saying, why did you do this? This was wrong. You're not going to get the results. It's more of the approach I would take is, all right, hey, what happened? Is there anything that you think you could have done differently? And then, depending how they answer, I would say, well, this is how I perceive it, and this is how I look at it. This would be how I would have addressed the problem. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
And then again, based off of how the person reacts, if they're still very negative about it, I would then say, what's the end result that we need? Whatever end result did you give us? All right, let's track and find out what happened, and how did we get to this spot? And then, trying to root cause things so the person acknowledges, okay, well, maybe I could have done this better, or maybe I could have done that. All right, great. That's where you can improve. And for my self improvement is helping others to self improve, especially in my career.
Yeah.
It's about developing other people. It's not about developing myself. I've proven that I can accomplish those things. That's why I'm where I'm at. So for me, self improvement is being able to teach others to do what I do. And I know that might sound corny, um, but that's the reality of upper management, in a sense, like to make the lower managers better, to train my replacements. I teach people everything I know because I'm not in fear that they'll take my position, just because whether they do or don't, I'm going to keep growing myself. Six Sigma and Lean Six training. I've taken that, and still the company's actually asking us to do a little bit more. I did that on my own just to continue my own growth. Running a business, to deep dive problems, uh, to help fix things. We do something called Gemba at our job where we're at, which is basically you're walking the floor at a really busy time to find problems in real time and real action, and you're talking with the associates that are involved directly in those paths to get feedback of what they see are the problems, to kind of get a real feel of what the problems are, because the managers aren't usually in the trenches all the time knowing exactly what's going on. This band's breaking quite often on this line, you know, that might be getting fixed, but if management doesn't really know about it, or now if the manager on duty isn't really dealing with it in a right way, it might just keep breaking. Putting band-aids on things isn't how we fix things. It's all right, well, what's the root cause? Why is it, pulling in partners like RME and maintenance to make sure you get that fixed? That's the key for things. And again, it's teaching people to, always to look deeper into things, but always look with a positive intent. Even when it might not be there, always look at it with a positive intent. That's how it. So yeah, and self growth is kind of what I would more be doing, and then also trying to teach my kids in that same aspect, because how I view, raising your kids, you're teaching them to be adults. Eventually, they're going to go out and do whatever they want anyway. You want to teach them to make the best decisions. We're all going to make bad decisions. Your kids are going to make bad decisions. Teach them to make good bad decisions.
Yeah.
Like not going and drinking and driving. That's a really bad one. A good bad decision would be calling me because they're so drunk, to come pick them up. You know what I told my kids? I won't even ask you a question if you do that. Just do me a favor and give me the call.
Or
I won't
Uber.
ask where you're at, whatever, you know what I mean? Unless you want to talk about it. That's how I approach things. Patience is the biggest thing I continue to work on. So that would be my self
Yeah.
reflection, and things that I continue to try to improve upon myself. Patience is a virtue.
Yeah. It sounds like um your 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 self development converges between your professional life, but also your personal life as a father and a husband, and you are trying to combine both so that you're able to perform in both realms and do the best possible job, because it's required of you as a manager at your job, but it's also required of you as a father in order to be able to maintain a emotionally stable home.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't lie. I mean, my wife raises the kids more than I do. I'm definitely not home all the time, and that's where like our relationship really works well. Um, Something that's really good is like your sister is an extremely patient person, passively patient, which is phenomenal because in my younger years I was extremely not patient. We were kind of like almost opposites. But thing is, she's balanced me well. I
Hmm.
think I've helped her a little bit too, because when I first met her, I felt like she was a little bit of a pushover, and I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just like she would tell me how like she'd be talking to a credit card company for your parents or something, and the way they would talk to her, I was like, no, no, don't, you don't let them talk to you like that. You're paying them money? No, 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 no. And nowadays, she doesn't quite bark like I do, but she absolutely has a bark. She doesn't let people push her around for BS.
You're both learning from each other and making each other better. Um,
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Plus, the kids wouldn't make it, and I wouldn't make it without her, as much as I might
yeah, I would
work.
I would
Uh,
hope I
it,
would
it,
hope so.
it's a good relationship. We have a good balance and a good understanding between each other, a mutual understanding, I would say, with each other, and how it works. Now, don't get me wrong, she also works now from home. So not only is she working and making money, but she's also doing most of the work with the kids. So I commend my wife.
Yeah, well, two jobs. Um,
They're always doing it. Mothers are great.
exactly. To wrap up, what's your favorite book, movie, and album of all time? The what's lacking question.
Book. I don't really have a specific book, if I had a book, that I remember when I was younger that I really liked, I think it would have been, was it Lord of the Flies, with the kids on the island.
Hmm.
Um,
The classic.
Favorite album would probably be Green Day. I want to say it was Dookie. It might have been. I think it was their first album that came out. It was like 1994. I think it was.
How old are
Um,
you in 1994?
14. Yes. Um, I'll give you an exact time frame of how old I am.
Perfect age for developing deep affinity and love for music.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I definitely
That's
like
like the sweet
music and I
spot.
love music.
13 to like 20 some, let's say 13 to 25 is that stage of your life where music is so important and such a big part of how you see yourself and your identity. And um I miss
Oh
those
yeah,
days.
music was a huge part of growing up, especially like for me when I was growing up, it was radio, or you had to buy cassette tapes. Like
Hmm.
CDs came out when I was in my teens. You know what I mean? There wasn't CDs when I was 10 years old. It was cassette tapes.
Yeah, yeah. So
Which
Green Day,
I'm not
their
old,
first,
don't get me wrong, but
yeah, their first album. Green Day is cool. I'm not big into what genre is Green Day? Rock or
I would say it's more rock, punk rock, something like that.
punk, punkish rock? Green Day. um
Uh, Everybody allocates it differently. I'm not really
yeah.
worried.
Um
I was
and
definitely
then and then how about movie? You skip movie.
movie. So I would say the movie that I play in the house the most is A Christmas Story. Probably the whole month of December, whenever that's on TNT or TBS, it's just I'll put it on free TVs in the house and not be necessarily watching it myself, but it'll always be on. So,
Yeah, it's a
but I
great
will
movie.
watch it whenever I stop to do stuff. So I would say maybe that. Other than that, like I'm more of a person. You know what I'm a biggest fan of is, unfortunately, and this will show my age, is cable TV. I like
Larry
cable TV.
Larry the Cable Guy. Um yeah, I mean cable is dead. It's going the way of
Yes, I
Blockbuster,
know.
so get your fix in while
I
you
know.
can.
After I'm done my Comcast contract, I will be permanently ending
You
cable.
you've been telling me this for the past 10 years.
No, no, I hands down will do it now. I have some other options.
Okay.
See, my biggest thing from leaving cable and Comcast in the beginning was I like my Philadelphia sports, and since I live
Yeah.
in Delaware, I'm still in the Philadelphia market. So Comcast has a monopoly on the Sixers, the Flyers, and the Sixers and the Flyers
Yeah,
more
yeah,
than
but
anything.
they provide local
So,
sports coverage.
well, yeah, I know. With technology, we're past that. I'm not the most technically savvy person, so I'm getting there.
You Google streaming of Philadelphia Flyers hockey game and you will get millions. I'm exaggerating. Thousands
Millions,
of hits where you could
hundreds,
stream the games. I'm not
maybe
saying
a
you
couple
should do it.
dozen.
I'm just, that's an
I
option.
follow you. I got you.
um, well, Mike, it was great talking to you. I think that every time we get together, we have really good chats and conversations. Um, Today, we probably should have tightened up a little bit our political talk. I feel as if I led the listeners astray a bit with my analysis, but for the next one, I promise I will come a lot stronger with better research and information and facts, so that they don't call the What's Lacking podcast a misinformation and disinformation media. So but it was great talking
Uh,
to you.
no
I love
misinformation here. You're getting raw Mike Clugston.
it was you had some really great points that I appreciated. And again, great talking to you.
It's
Take
great
care.
talking to you too.
All
You
right.
take care as well.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.